All right, here we go. Hello, and welcome back to the Circle Podcast. My name is Phillip. I'm one of four best friends that host this show. Today's episode is going to be kind of an odd one. The atmosphere is a little different because I am solo. I am by myself on this one. The other three guys are busy. I don't know what to say. Gotta say, this is weird. It's a little weird. Sitting here in the trailer studio by myself. It's different. It's definitely different. Kind of eerie. Just the camera pointing at me. Just hearing myself talk. But leading up to this episode, I've said it on previous episodes. Like there's not much you can think about on a creative standpoint of what to talk about in a time like this, a time that we are in at this current moment. When the only thing you hear all over the internet, all over the news is about this virus, COVID-19, the coronavirus. It's all you hear about. And, it's a tough thing because this is something we've never experienced ever. We've never experienced a virus that's able to shake humanity globally, where it's able to shut down multiple countries and multiple economies. We've never seen something like this. If you think about it, in my lifetime, my young adult life, I've definitely never experienced something like this. I know my parents have never experienced something like this. My grandparents, granted, they're all young. My grandparents and my parents, they're all young, but I think even if you go to the oldest generation that may be around right now, I don't think that they can really say that they've experienced something like this. And I've heard multiple people call this a major historical event. And if you believe that's true, then you have to think about what has come. What have the repercussions been with major historical events? What comes after them? And I don't think that's a conversation we're having enough about, which is understandable. We are more worried about the day-to-day of not, losing our minds, sitting at home, making sure that our family stays healthy and that we don't, pass on this virus to an older generation and then get them sick. But I still feel like that conversation needs to be had. And then for me, the question that's been on my mind leading into this episode that I wanted to talk about most is, instead of talking about the virus and what's going on now, I want to have that conversation about what this may impact afterwards, after this is all gone, and it's a tough thing because I see plenty of anger going around on the internet, people pointing fingers at this person, at that person. And granted, you can point fingers at whoever you want. That's your given right. You can do whatever you want. You can point your finger and, say that it was their fault. But at the end of the day, you can't just point it at one person. You can't point it at the administration going on right now. Granted, there are problems that they could have foreseen, and there's things that they said and things that they did that were wrong. I'm not going to argue with anyone on that. But to deny the fact that there isn't multiple things wrong with leading up to this pandemic, or there isn't multiple things wrong in our system that we can fix to ultimately avoid this, I think that's what I'm trying to say. Like if you look at the governor of New York, who's getting a lot of backlash for, the years leading up to this, he had money that could have went towards more PPE for the doctors and nurses that are there in New York, but instead it was pushed more towards his green solar deal. It's just a question regardless of what side of the aisle you're on politically, um, uh, both parties are at fault when it comes to not being prepared in this situation. Um, and then that raises the question, like, will this change the way we look at politics and how we vote for our governors, our senators, our president? Will this change the political landscape? Because I, for one, am a person that believes our system may be flawed in certain ways. Me, myself, I don't identify with one eye or the other. I have opinions. And if you have a question on a certain topic that comes to like the political atmosphere, I'll have a conversation with you. I'll give you my opinion, but I refuse to identify politically to any side, because once you do that, that creates a sense of tribalism. And then if you look at history, if you're on one side or the other side, it just creates problems. I'm a person with an opinion, and I'm not afraid to share it. Also, with that said, my opinion is my own. Take it with a grain of salt. Like it, hate it, I don't really care, but it's my opinion. But I was a person that didn't vote in this last election because I'm one person that believes choosing one evil over the other is not the right decision. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought a little. But let me get back to what I was saying about pointing fingers. Like I said, you can point fingers either direction. But I think that just shows how far we as an American society have lost our values of when it comes to who we vote for and why we vote for them. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these politicians that are in office are career politicians. They've been there for a long time. They don't really care. They'll say what they need to say to stay in power. And if you really think about it, the person that's in the highest chair doesn't change your day-to-day life. I'm sorry to say, but my personal experience is my life hasn't changed very drastically ever since Obama was president or George Bush was president. And I know I'll get critiques or older people commenting saying, well, you haven't lived long enough, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. I'm giving my opinion, and my life hasn't changed much at all since the current administration's in office and the previous administration. Nothing much has changed. The other thing that I think about too is our economics. After all this, I question, will these companies that went to China for cheaper goods and cheaper labor, how are we as a society going to look at that now? Are we going to question these companies that go across seas to get cheaper goods and cheaper labor to pump out products back towards us? Because if you look at what happened, the virus originated in China, and then we couldn't really get goods out of China because we didn't want it to spread over here. Inevitably, it did. And then when we need the supplies like the masks, all the PPE that doctors use and nurses use over here was all in China because they're manufactured in China. I just question, will this change how the economic atmosphere will change? Will we stop making so much goods in China? I don't really know. But it's a question that needs to be asked. I mean, if there's nothing we can do at this moment, these are the questions. This is the conversation I feel like needs to be talked about. And the other sad thing is, going on right now, it's sad to see children that are seniors in high school or kids that, these are important years of development that don't get to go outside. They don't get to play with friends. Um, it's a sad thing that um, single parents, how are they going to be able to deal with their child being at home all the time? And this parent might be an essential worker and they need to go out and work. It's a sad time. I hear some people compare it to wartime. Um, and if that's true, uh, the question is, do we have the right people in place for wartime? Do we have a war president? Do we have the people in office that are willing to deal with what comes from a war? In my personal opinion, I don't think we do. Not just at the highest seat, but anywhere below. I forgot what politician said it, but they were telling us that we didn't need masks or PPE like a couple weeks ago, and what was it, just yesterday or 2 days ago? You hear them saying, no, you should probably walk around with the mask if you do go out, which you shouldn't. People, is this something that is okay? Like, are we okay with the people that we elect into office telling us these things and then contradicting themselves the next, regardless of what side you're on? I don't know. This whole thing has made me realize that I need to stop being a person that notices the problems and start being the person that actually makes steps towards wanting to change them. Because like I said, I didn't vote. I don't know if I will this coming election, but it doesn't just start with voting for the highest office. You can go out to your local elections, like your city mayor. I bet no one votes for their city mayor except for older people. You can vote for your governor, your senators, but that's where change starts. It starts in your local neighborhood. I learned this from being a union carpenter, that they would always want us to go to these city hall meetings, or if there's meetings, not in your city, but in a local city, and it was a bill being passed on working rights for union members. Like, they were trying to push us to make sure that all work was union in that city. And I never really thought about it, but that's where direct change happens for you day to day, is the little steps like that. Not just work, but also a schooling, like for your children. I believe you can go in and sit in these meetings, voice your opinion. Once these, I guess you can call them low-end politicians, city mayors, yada yada. Once they hear your opinions, you're a vote to them, so they're gonna want to satisfy you. And if there's enough voices, change will come. But I think that's what I realized through all this, is that I need to stop being a person wanting to notice all the flaws and be a person that actually wants to do something about them. So I do want to start going to these city halls. I don't even know who my mayor is of my city. And then I question you, do you know who your mayor is of your city? I bet you don't. And if you do, good for you. Man. Andy did an episode solo, and he did it for 30 minutes. I'm almost to 15, and I'm starting not to have anything to talk about. But yeah, these are questions that I have in my head. When this is all over, how much is gonna change? Because what was the last major historical event? For me, I would say 9/11. For myself, that's what I remember. Because that impacted us directly as a society here in America. The way we fly is totally different. Security is totally different. And I wonder, if this is considered a major historical event, what will change? I have no idea. But I think it's important um, for us as a society to think about it. What do we want to change? I mean, is it time that we finally want better public health? Is it time that we want better schooling for our children? Because if you listen to our last episode, um, James and Andy weren't wrong when they said that change can be made. Money can be pushed through the system to make one thing a priority. How come the same thing can't be done for a better public health? How come the same thing can't be done for better schooling for children? Like, the public schooling system is a joke. At least here in California, it is. You know, my little brother, he needs some help in his math. I asked him, "What math are you taking?" And he told me Math 5. Someone tell me what the fuck Math 5 is. I have no idea. I'm guessing they call it Math 5 now so they don't make children feel sad that they're in a higher math class compared to their peers, or they're in a lower math class to their peers. Because when I went to school, it was, algebra, geometry, algebra 2, calculus. That's what we called math when I was in high school, and that wasn't long ago. But it's kind of a joke if you think about it. And the way we have schooling, I mean, it seems like teachers have to work off this, what do they call them? Agendas. They have an agenda to meet. Like, what passion can be brought with teaching if the teacher can't really, do or go into the things that they want to when teaching it. Granted, I'm not a teacher, but I imagine if there's an agenda I have to meet, I'm not going to be able to teach the things I'm truly passionate about. And they weren't wrong. What is what I'm trying to say, James and Andy. They weren't wrong about the things that they said. The only thing that I disagreed with them with is that this plan is meant to pump money back into the economy, which is, in my opinion, needs to be had. It needs to be done, because if we don't do that, I feel like there's going to be more problems of instability after all this. But I'm not saying after this is all done that public health obviously needs more funding. It needs actual experts that know what they're talking about stepping in and saying, no, this is how much we need, and we need it now, so something like this never happens again. But if you're a person that thinks that they had enough information, they had enough time to fix all this, if you look back, do some research yourself, that's not true. When it happened, we knew about it, but we actually had no idea of what this virus was doing in China, like that it was a respiratory virus. They weren't telling us. They were lying that they even had it going on. They lied about their numbers in the beginning, and then by the time it spread, I believe it was far past being able to control it or keeping a lid on it. Obviously, I mean, you look at China, their numbers, what they say, it's a lot, but it's obviously not the truth. There's way more than that. You look at Italy, there's, so many cases of it. What are we up to? Like 1.5 million, or 1.6 million cases. I don't believe that we had the time or the information to make sure that something like this was going to be controlled. And then, how can you, even now when it's well into America, we have the most amount of cases. I air quote that because I don't believe we do. When we have the most cases, even now, experts are still not able to really figure out how many respirators we need, or ventilators, or how much PPE we're gonna need, because it's just they don't know. It's something that just can't be determined. But we're gonna say that we had plenty of time and plenty of information beforehand to make sure that something like this didn't happen. I think that's just not true. Something like this you just can't picture happening. Something that's never happened before. God, I feel like a broken record talking about this, because it's just having the conversation in my head over and over again, and then now talking about it out loud and talking to multiple people about it. I like my girlfriend, or my girlfriend's family, or my family, my friends. The other thing that sucks too is that I'm a person that, I know this thing's serious, but that doesn't stop me from going outside, enjoying a walk. I don't really wear a mask. I'm gonna be going back to work tomorrow. I'm not really scared, and I know that may sound selfish of me, not sounding scared or taking precautions, which I'm gonna have to take precautions. It's a rule on our job site to wear masks and gloves at all time, which I'm fine with doing, But if it wasn't a rule, I probably wouldn't do it. It's just the person I am. I know that sounds selfish. Once again, that's me. I don't really care what you think. It's just who I am. But yeah, if I can sum up this episode, it would just be to really question what is going on out there. I mean, or what's gonna happen after this. Something's gonna happen. Something's gonna change for sure. What is it? I don't know. But at the end of the day, we, the society that lives here and elects the people that make changes for us, we have to think about these questions, and we have to do something. We have to make a decision. What do we truly want from this country? What do we truly want to consider important? And I think that's what how I would sum up this episode is, I just ask you to please ask yourselves, what do I want to see change? And how can I change it? Because I feel like this is an event where all of us can look at, realize that we are more at risk than we think to certain things like this, and how can we change it? Yeah. I think I'm going to end it there. I know I kind of rambled, and I may have went off track a few times. I'm sorry about it. I'm sorry this is such a short episode, but that's what happens when you leave me by myself. Yeah. But I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Hopefully I have some friends here. Actually, next week we will have, regardless if my co-hosts come in also, I will have a special guest coming next week. A guy I've known for a while, a guy I appreciate being my friend. He's an interesting character. I look forward to bringing him on. I know he has some stories that he can share. It'll be a good episode. But for now, I'll catch you guys later. Remember, only you can prevent forest fires. Don't let the white man get you down. And I'll catch you on the next one.